Hey everybody! As always, my name is Mickey Roberts, and welcome back to Knowing Nothing. You probably noticed that there wasn't an intro to this episode like there usually is. That's because I didn't think this one needed it. This episode is a little bit different than the ones I've done before it, in that our subject today is something I really needed to remind myself of this week. It's not just learning for the sake of learning this time. Today, it's learning for the sake of growing. But before I go further, I first want to thank everyone who's been tuning in these past few weeks and giving me feedback on my previous episodes. It's more helpful to me than I can ever express, though I suppose I'm trying to express it right now. But anyway, with that said, if you have any thoughts about a particular episode, good or bad, questions or suggestions or ideas for topics for a new episode, please don't hesitate to email me at mickey@soundpollination.com. Or leave a comment below the episode on Apple Podcasts or whatever streaming service you use. This show isn't just mine, it's ours, and I want to make the episodes you want to hear. Okay, that being said, today we are going to be looking at a very simple concept that, speaking from my own experience, tends to be very difficult to act on. This concept was suggested to me just last week by my very own wonderful mother. And quick aside, I realize I haven't spoken about my mom much in previous episodes, but just so you know, she is the absolute most incredible woman I have ever met, and I will likely be mentioning her often in this episode and episodes to come. Anyway, I digress. Before releasing my last episode on the origin of hiccups, which was just such a silly episode, I had a bit of a setback. I had done maybe 5 hours of research and written over, 3, 4, 5 pages of notes and quotes and a whole outline for the show. And when I finally finished the episode and was ready to record it, my computer spazzed and I lost everything. My entire outline, my research highlights, sources, quotes, and about 400 other documents that I've written over the past 5 years. Needless to say, I was more than slightly peeved, probably somewhere between annoyed and utterly devastated. And for the rest of that day and the whole next day, I just didn't have it in me to do it all over again. I guess I wanted a little time to mourn the loss of my Hiccups episode. And no one seemed to be around that day, so I had to mourn in solitude. And despite my many phone call venting attempts to friends, all I received were voicemail recordings. And finally, because I just needed to vent to someone about how all my hard work just disappeared, I called my mom. And for maybe 5 minutes, she just listened to me vent and complain and blame the universe. And then, without even batting an eye, well, we were on the phone, but I didn't hear any eye batting. The first thing she told me was, "Mickey, don't sweat the small stuff. How awesome is it that you get to write it again?" Write it again. Given my mental state during this call, the prospect of writing that again was the furthest thing from awesome. But after hanging up the phone, I thought about what she said, and it led me to create this episode. Don't sweat the small stuff. Me losing all of that work wasn't some catastrophic event from which I couldn't recover. It was an opportunity. Any seemingly crappy thing in life is an opportunity for us to choose what we want to focus on. Do I want to allow myself to wallow in grief because all my work is gone? Or do I want to accept that that is now part of my reality and embrace the challenge of doing it again? And since I know I have to do it again anyway. And now, I know many of you listening to this might be thinking, of course you absolutely deserve to choose to have some wallow time. And you're totally right. But what's important about that way of thinking is that you're still choosing it. And this is the main point I want to make, and the subject of today's episode. You are not in control of the things that happen to you. But you are in control of how you respond to the things that happen to you. Whoa, meta, right? But it's really true. The world is a big, scary, messy place. And a whole bunch of unexpected crap is happening all the time. From your computer crashing the night before a deadline, to a hurricane sweeping away your home. Human life is uncontrollable, and it only guarantees one thing: being alive. Everything after that is gravy. I have a friend who believes fervently in his ability to control his life. That if he wants badly enough for the train to arrive as he walks into the subway station, then it will. Now, I'm not well versed at all in the ways of manifestation or anything like that, so I'm not knocking it. It certainly seems to work well for him. But for me, it seems like he's focusing on the wrong side of the coin. It's not about needing to make life work in your favor. It's about practicing how to respond when that train doesn't show up on time. And knowing that when crappy things inevitably happen, you don't have to feel crappy about them. I can't tell you how many times stupid things have totally taken my mind hostage down a negative thought path. Even little things. A guy cutting me off in traffic, or a pigeon pooping on my shoulder on the way to work. Totally random, unexpected, unpreventable things, which I chose to let affect me. And for the rest of that day, I was in a bad mood. And not only was I in a bad mood, but I was probably putting other people in a bad mood too. Now, did I want to be in a bad mood? My ego says no, but honestly, I probably felt comfort in just relinquishing control of my whole mindset for the day to this one negative thing. It's easy to make excuses. Well, I was feeling great until that asswipe cut me off on 684, and it's his fault I'm all pissed off now. Well, the asswipe has no idea I'm mad at him. And being mad at him isn't affecting his day at all. It's affecting mine. I think it was Malachi McCourt who said, resentment is like taking poison and waiting for the other person to die. And it's true. If you want to be happy, stop looking for reasons to be mad, or sad, or annoyed. There's something in psychology called the locus of control, and this is a term that was coined by American psychologist Julian Rotter in the 1950s. It is essentially a spectrum of personalities based on any individual's perception of why things happen in their life. Someone who has an internal locus of control believes that they have control over their life. Someone with an external locus of control believes their life is controlled by outside forces, like a god or fate or karma or luck. Stanford psychologist Philip Zimbardo, in his 1985 book Psychology in Life, writes, "A locus of control orientation is a belief about whether the outcomes of our actions are contingent on what we do or on events outside our personal control." I think that this is a key concept when it comes to finding happiness. No one is responsible for my actions except for me. And my actions include choosing how I feel about things that happen to me, i.e. getting pooped on by a pigeon or cut off by an asswipe. Will I be mad at the pigeon? Will I let a pigeon ruin my day? I'd like to think I won't, but all too often I do. And being mad about the poop on my shoulder isn't going to change the fact that there's poop on my shoulder. It's just going to make me mad. And there's nothing helpful about being mad. But how much nicer would it be to realize that there's poop on my shoulder and choose to find it hilarious that a pigeon just pooped on my shoulder? Some miraculously timed out mid-flight bowel movement display which ended in a grand finale of poop splattered on my shoulder. I mean, it's incredible how something that insignificant can instantly rob you of any good mood you are in. And this is a silly example, I know, but it applies to every minor inconvenience in your life. Rush hour on the subway, people not saying thank you when you hold the door open for them, being talked down to by a bank teller, being mad at the weather. It's really easy to let these things bother you, and even easier to use them as excuses for being unhappy. It's a tactful way to relieve yourself from taking responsibility for your own emotions. Emotions you might think that you're subservient to. This brings me to my first Don't Sweat the Small Stuff challenge, which, if you're interested, I want you to try. It's a coping skill my mom made up called stupid tax. Whenever I do something stupid that costs me money or time, like not checking my eggs before I leave the store, or forgetting my credit card at the gas station, or accidentally buying a can of decaf coffee when I meant to buy regular, Instead of getting angry about it, I chalk up that money to my stupid tax, and it instantly makes me chuckle, because sometimes lessons cost money. Oh no, I bought a white button-down for work at H&M, and I didn't realize until I got home that there's a pink flamingo on the back of it. Stupid tax. That was dumb. But anyway, it's a frame of mind through which to process my experiences, and it reminds me each time that I'm in control of how I want to feel about something. And being happy is too important to me to let broken eggs ruin my day. There's that all too commonly used analogy about positivity with the glass being half full or half empty, but I think it's used so often because it's really a wonderful way to view the world. Whether you see it as half full or half empty, the glass has the same amount of water in it. And that water is the objective reality of your circumstance. It's the poop on your shoulder, if you will. And your perspective of that reality is either half full or half empty, frustrating or funny. But neither of those perspectives are the truth. They're simply your truth, a truth you chose to focus on. And the amazing thing about our brains is that we can only focus on so much at once. So why not choose to focus on the brighter stuff? In my experience, it seems like a lot of people tend to evaluate their lives in negative space. It's the things we can't do, the jobs we don't have, the family relationships we didn't sustain, the talents we weren't born with that define us. But what about all the incredible things that we have every single day? The most amazing abilities people have are so often taken for granted. My mom once told me a story about this topic, which I think about every day. She once went to Chicago with a few friends to see Oprah live before her show ended. And while she was there, she took her very first yoga class. And in that yoga class, the instructor asked her to focus on how her toes were supporting her. Well, my mom, being the awesome gal that she is, started to get emotional all of a sudden, feeling this immense gratitude for her toes. She said she'd never thought to thank her toes for all the years of support they'd given her. And she actually felt guilty for having taken them for granted. And ever since she told me this silly story, every time I notice my toes, I think about how lucky I am to have them. And no matter what's going on in my day, for that moment, I'm filled with gratitude for all the things I do have in my life. And then the crappy stuff just seems a little less overwhelming. And this brings me to my second Don't Sweat the Small Stuff challenge. Now, this challenge is more of a game that you can play with yourself when you're waiting on the subway, or driving to work, or just standing in line at the grocery store. And it's a game I learned from that same friend of mine who can summon subway trains. It's called the Grateful Game, and it's really easy to play. Whenever you find the time, at least once a day, just make a list in your head of things that you're grateful for. Simple things like, I'm grateful for my new jacket. Or I'm grateful I didn't forget my umbrella. Just rack them off. I'm grateful I have eyes to see. I'm grateful that my fingers can hold my pencil. I'm grateful for the guy who made this sidewalk. I'm grateful that bananas exist. I'm grateful that Billy Joel made so many awesome albums that I can dance to. I'm grateful I can dance. Kind of. I promise you, after you play the Grateful Game, it is impossible to stay in a bad mood. All right. We're nearing the end of this episode now, so I want to leave you with one final thought. It's not a challenge or some huge philosophy on life. It's just a simple idea I've come to find to be true about happiness. Everyone wants to be happy. And there's an industry that sells a variety of secrets about being happy. Books, CDs, classes, conventions. But you can't be happy. Happiness isn't a quality that people have. It's an activity people participate in. I'm not being happy. I'm doing happy. And I can even do it with poop on my shoulder. Well, that's the end of this episode. Don't sweat the small stuff. I know it was a little less science-y than some of the others, but learning isn't just about facts. Life is ripe with new things to know. Just by striking a conversation with a stranger or accidentally deleting a podcast episode. You can stumble upon a life lesson just as important, or maybe even more important than knowing where hiccups come from. I'm Mickey Roberts, and this is Knowing Nothing. Stay curious, and don't sweat the small stuff. As always, I want to give a shout out to Sound Pollination sponsors and affiliate mothers. Amazon.com. If you ever want to buy your Amazon goodies and simultaneously help out Sound Pollination, go to our website and click on the Amazon banner at the top of the page. That way, when you buy those goodies, Amazon will give us a small percentage of your purchase, and it won't cost you a thing. I also want to thank Lenny and Larry's delicious, healthy cookies, and also Blue Apron. If you go through our website to get your Blue Apron meals, you'll get a discount on your first meal. And lastly, True Vodka and Unorthodox, a fully immersive creative space in the heart of New York City, dedicated to bringing out the kid in you through art. And of course, another thank you to all of our Indiegogo supporters. You guys are really helping us to make something I think can be incredible. And last, if you want to help us out here at Sound Pollination, please feel free to subscribe to us on Patreon. It's you guys who keep our lights on, and for that we are ever grateful. I'm Mickey Roberts. This is Knowing Nothing. Thank you for listening. Let's learn a whole new nothing next time.